Hello, I'm Judith Gay, Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Community College of Philadelphia. Today on Academic Dialogues, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Stuart Avart. Dr. Avart is an Associate Professor of Biology, and he also won the 2012 Lindback Award for Distinguished Teaching. Thank you, Dr. Avart, for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr.
I'll call
Gay.
you Stuart. Right. So, when did you first discover that you had an interest in and talent for science?
It's interesting. I always tell my students the first day of every semester, every class, that cells are biochemical machines. And that's something I actually learned very early on in my academic career. When I took my first biology and chemistry class in high school, that's one of the first things I learned, that cells are biological machines. And that's something that interested me because individually chemicals are non-living entities, but it absolutely floored me when you consider the fact that non-living chemicals can interact and associate with each other to bring about the living state. And that's something that really piqued my interest, and for that reason, when I went into college and graduate school, I majored in biochemistry.
So it was high school that actually turned you on to biology?
It was high school, absolutely correct.
Was it, do you think it was something about the teacher or more just the subject?
I think it was a combination of the teacher and the subject. I had very good teachers beginning in high school and carried through to college and graduate school. I was very lucky.
Now, you went all the way through to get your Ph.D.
Yes.
in biology.
Yes.
And a lot of people who pursue that route end up with a lot of time spent on research. They carve out a research career, and they may do some teaching on the side, but research is their primary focus. You moved the other direction and made your primary focus teaching, much to our benefit at the college.
Thank you.
But tell me a little bit about why you made that choice to go more teaching than research.
First of all, to me, I love to interact with people, and teaching gives me that opportunity. Research is a more isolated profession, but more important than that, when I was in my senior year of college, I had an opportunity to teach biology laboratories to non-science majors, and that absolutely floored me. It was such a wonderful experience. Let me tell you, when you present concepts to students where initially they're unsure and uncomfortable, and they suddenly get it, and you see that smile come across their face, it's a very wonderful, it's a very rewarding thing, and I really enjoy that.
I have to say that I had the same experience when I was a graduate student. We were required, as part of the assistantship that I got, to teach a psychology class. And actually, my teaching was more limited because you were being supervised by an instructor. But I found that I absolutely loved being in the classroom. I loved what you're saying, getting the feedback from the students, seeing people progress and understand the subject matter.
Sometimes it's as if that light bulb just clicks on and they get it. To me, it's a very rewarding experience as an educator.
So another choice you had to make at some point was you could have gone to a university, you could have gone to a four-year liberal arts college, but you ended up teaching at a community college. Tell me a little bit about the decision to teach at and stay at a community college for your career.
I've been very lucky with having the opportunity to teach here at Community College of Philadelphia since 1992. It's been a very rewarding and wonderful experience. I have gained a tremendous amount of knowledge throughout my academic career, and teaching is an opportunity for me to share this information with others. One of the things that the future of this country depends upon is an educated workforce and an educated populace, and if I can help to contribute to that, it's a wonderful thing. Here, I enjoy having such a diverse student population in terms of learning skills, in terms of age, and it has rewarded me with a great opportunity. You know, everyday living depends upon an understanding, a basic understanding of knowledge. For instance, you turn on the television, the internet, radio, read magazines, newspapers, and there's terms such as biotechnology that if you don't fully understand what the term means, it can really scare you. And if I can contribute to some basic understanding of some of this terminology, I'm very happy, I'm very pleased. Because when you look at biotechnology as an example, it has contributed so much to our ability to survive. And I think everybody needs some basic understanding of this terminology.
You mentioned the diversity of the student population at the college in terms of both learning styles and all kinds of diversity at the college, race, religion, age, learning styles. So how do you deal with that in the classroom? And you talk about it as an advantage, and I know sometimes people might see that as a disadvantage.
You learn to adapt. I have learned to adapt to the diversity of the student population. Sometimes you use different teaching methodologies that may work for some and not for others, and you just try to hit a happy medium. And that's why I like to spend time with students in the classroom and laboratory. It gives me the opportunity to work with them.
Now, do you ever miss the having an opportunity to teach the junior and senior year of biology?
No, not really, because let me tell you, when I see our students transfer to four-year schools and perhaps transfer to graduate programs, and they come back and tell me the successes that they've had, I'm very happy.
So you talked about how important it is to you and how much you enjoy working with students in the laboratory. There's a lot of conversation in higher education about how important laboratory experiences are for students, particularly students that aren't going to go on in science. How critical is that as part of a liberal education, as part of a general education for students, in your opinion?
I think laboratory experience is essential for many disciplines, including the sciences, technology, engineering, for instance. In the classroom, students learn about the cells and how they function, but in the laboratory, they actually have an opportunity to apply what they've been learning. They have an opportunity perhaps to look at living cells, cells carrying out dynamic processes, perhaps have an opportunity to look at what factors influence the activity of cells. So yes, to me, the laboratory experience is essential because, as I said, it gives students the opportunity to apply what they're learning about in the classroom.
So actual hands-on kind of experience.
Hands-on is essential, yes.
What about online courses? I don't know, have you ever taken an online course or taught an online course?
I've never taken an online course. I've never taught an online course. Online education, I think, is fine for certain disciplines. When it comes to the sciences, for instance, I guess it really depends upon the topics being covered. Like I told you before, I like to interact with my students. And I need to be able to see my students. I need to see their body language to see whether they really understand what I'm doing. The laboratory, as I said, gives students the opportunity to apply what they're learning about in class. So I think it would be most appropriate if you're going to do online education, distance education for the sciences, maybe perhaps to have hybrid courses where the classroom component is through distance ed, but the students come on campus and actually do hands-on laboratory activities.
Okay, so kind of the blend of both
in
class
and
online. So we do offer, I think, at least one biology class.
Biology
online.
106.
Right. So do the students come on? I should know this, I guess, but do the students actually come to campus, or do we have like a biology in a box?
It's strictly distance ed, all online activities.
Okay, and have you heard anything about how students do with that kind of, they do their experiments at home, I
They do,
imagine?
everything is online.
Okay.
And from what I understand, students are doing quite well with that medium.
So it probably depends to some extent on the faculty member. It may work for some people and not for others.
To be honest, it wouldn't work for me. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I don't think I'm suited. As I told you before, I like to interact with my students. I need to see them. I need to see their body language to see whether they're really understanding the concepts that I'm presenting.
How does a department come to that decision? Was there a kind of a meeting of the minds of the department to say, okay, if you're interested in online teaching, try it out and let's see how it goes. We'll look at the outcomes. But other people, not everybody has to do it.
Right. From what I understand, that's exactly it. If a faculty member wants to develop a distance education course, that it's entirely up to them.
One of the other things that I've been reading quite a bit about lately, obviously there's quite a bit of interest in the United States in promoting the STEM careers and getting more students interested in science and moving forward in science. And one of the things I've read is that research experiences, kind of beyond the experiments that you might do as part of the application for a course, is considered a high impact practice. And high impact practices are somewhat defined as activities that engage students in ways that contribute to their persistence in colleges and universities. So, for example, service learning is considered to be a high impact practice, and a study abroad is considered a high impact practice. But research, having an opportunity to do an actual research project with a faculty member is also considered to be a high impact practice. Is that something that's possible to do at the community college level? I could see, obviously a lot of people probably know that seniors in college may do a research project with a faculty member, but could we do that at the 2-year level to have that kind of high impact practice?
Not only can we do it, I think we should be doing it.
Okay.
Typically speaking, the laboratory component of science courses has been designed for students to do classical experimentation. Basically, they're carrying out experimentation where they already know the results. But wouldn't it be an opportunity, wouldn't it be a wonderful opportunity to give students the chance to actually do science? In early part of this year, the President's Council of Advisors of Science, Technology, and Engineering released a report that said that they're expecting to need at least 1 million more students over the next decade majoring in the STEM fields. Interestingly enough, though, only 40% of the students that enter the STEM fields actually graduate in the STEM field from undergraduate programs. And they looked at some of the statistics, and one of the statistics was that the high-performing students felt uninspired to continue in their studies, and the low-performing students that had high aptitude and high interest felt unprepared.
Okay.
So the report also indicated a number of imperatives: provide diverse pathways for students to remain in the STEM fields, and give them the tools necessary to persist. And one of them was immerse students in an opportunity to do research. And recently the college started to develop, this was actually in the biology department, started to develop a program where students would be immersed in a undergraduate research program here. It's actually designed for financially needed, academically able students that would take a 2-course research component in their first year, followed up by serving as mentors in their second year to students that are coming in the year after them. And there would be a number of support services, there would be a number of support services available to them. For instance, they'd be working with faculty mentors, and there would be career guidance and guidance for students to help them look at transfer to 4-year institutions. And something we're looking to see is increase enrollment in the sciences, increase retention, increase transfer to 4-year schools, and increase transfer to graduate programs.
That would be wonderful. So students in the first couple of years actually would be working alongside of faculty.
Actually be doing discovery, as we call it, discovery science, working with faculty mentors on research projects.
Now, how do you think the faculty will feel about that?
We've had several faculty in biology and chemistry and engineering physics departments that have expressed interest and that have some ideas for research projects, and we're just waiting for the opportunity to undertake this initiative.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, would we need to partner with a 4-year institution at all, or do you think we could have the equipment, have the capability? Because I know our laboratories weren't necessarily designed for doing discovery research.
For some of this, for some of these research projects, we may have these equipment that we need, the facilities, but for some of them, perhaps in engineering, we may have to partner with 4-year schools. We're just not equipped with the equipment and the technologies.
The college, a couple of years ago, actually we're on our second, created an academic master plan. And this is actually our second academic master plan. It's supposed to provide direction for academic affairs at the college in terms of moving things forward. So one of the things we put in our academic master plan was that we wanted to encourage more faculty to use 21st century teaching and learning skills. and we never defined in the plan what 21st century teaching and learning skills means. So if you had to define that for us, what would you say that means?
I think principally it would involve making students, making education student-centered. We want students to be less passive in the learning environment and more active learners. How exactly do we accomplish that? Perhaps by incorporating case studies into our classroom and laboratory activities. Perhaps giving students before class and lab series of questions that they would be expected to try to answer for entering the classroom or lab.
Now, are those some of the kinds of things that you do currently, or those are things that we should strive to move towards?
I've tried to do it. Sometimes I'm successful with it, sometimes I'm not. I think it all depends upon the discipline that is being taught.
Now, certainly just the possibility of working in a laboratory to some extent, since you mentioned being active in the class, that in and of itself means activity.
Right.
So maybe that's another reason why the laboratory experience is so important, because it kind of forces students to be actively engaged with the
Absolutely,
with the discipline.
and with the advent of newer and more exciting technologies, we have the opportunity to help students gain that application of concepts that they've been learning in the classroom.
Now, so you've been teaching for quite a few years now. You've
A few
at
years,
the college
yes.
since 1997.
I had a full head of hair when I began. No, only kidding.
Okay. So has your teaching changed much over time?
I don't think my teaching has changed much over time. I've had the opportunity to hone my skills. As I told you earlier, I love to interact with students, and teaching gives me the opportunity to do that. I started out as a typical chalk and eraser and a chalkboard type of teacher, and to much extent I'm still that same way, but I do incorporating PowerPoint presentations, animations, videos in my classrooms, anything that I can do to make the classroom and laboratory experience more dynamic and more exciting. I do love to incorporate humor into the classroom. To me, humor breaks the tension. It usually puts students more at ease, more willing for students to foster the opportunity to learn the material that I'm teaching. And I have no trouble making myself the brunt of my own jokes. Anything that I can do to enhance the learning experience works for me.
And did you use humor early on in your career also?
Absolutely,
Okay.
from day one.
Okay.
And I made fun of myself many years ago, and I continue to do so.
So that works. So if you find something that works, you keep doing it.
Absolutely. And my students appreciate it because it makes them feel more comfortable with me.
And the technology has really changed somewhat teaching, I can imagine. I mean, even though you're still using chalk and eraser.
I started out with chalk, I advanced to transparencies, now it's a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, animations, it's amazing
Animation,
what can be done now in terms of the technology. So if you were going to give advice to someone who's just starting out in teaching, I mean, every year we hire people, sometimes right out of graduate school, into a start on a teaching career, what would you recommend to them?
There's three things that I've learned throughout my years of education. First, keep up with your discipline. Know your discipline, keep up with your field. Second of all, try to predict the questions that students might ask and be prepared to answer them. And you know what? If you don't have an answer to it, that's fine. Admit to the students you don't have an answer. You will try to find an answer to their question and get back to them as soon as you can. And the third is listen to your students. A lot of times they may make statements that may seem totally off the mark, but they're the basis of new ideas in teaching pedagogies. For instance, I like to use analogies in my classroom. And sometimes I can't think of the appropriate analogy, and a student may make a great recommendation, and it's worked. So I think those are the three most important things. Keep up with the discipline, predict the questions students might ask, be prepared, and listen to your students.
Yeah, I think one of the last things maybe that we have time to talk about is how do we increase the effectiveness of community colleges. We certainly play a key role in terms of education, particularly in the first 2 years, but many students that start at a community college, even though they may desire to complete their community college experience before going on to a four-year college, end up not being successful and not completing the number of credits they thought they would be able to complete. So do you have any thoughts about how we as a college could increase our effectiveness and, defining effectiveness in terms of student outcomes?
Whatever we can do to foster the appropriate educational environment. At CCP here, I think we do achieve to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that faculty make themselves available to students. I think we do that also. In fact, I know we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Community colleges, when they were first designed, were designed to have small classrooms, anything to maintain the optimal student to faculty ratio. With the new technologies that are available to us, we can come in contact with so many students at any one time, but I don't think we want to approach that. We want to do anything we can to maintain how community colleges were designed. We want to optimize student to faculty ratio.
I certainly believe that I think our largest class is 36, quite different from what you might get at a university where you're in a classroom with 200 students, 300 students sometimes, or even more. And that can work effectively for some institutions, but I do agree that faculty-student engagement and contact is probably critical to student success. Are there, and we certainly do try to do that, but are there other areas that we need to work on in terms of student retention? Anything else you can think of that might be beneficial for improving student outcomes?
Well,
I know math is a big one, that students very often come into the college with weak skills in terms of math, and if they want to go into science, obviously math skills are critical.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but many of our students come into the college, I feel, unprepared to tackle the higher level courses. And unfortunately, we're, I think, at the mercy of secondary education. So I think if the students were coming into the college better prepared, we could better succeed in our job. We are faced with certain limitations.
Mm-hmm. We, I think, have been starting to work more to have a dialogue, at least, with secondary educators to make sure that the transition from secondary to post-secondary is more seamless. It seems to me that ending up, secondary education, that sometimes the expectations that they have for getting out of high school aren't necessarily aligned with the expectations for getting into college.
That is correct.
So trying to break that bridge, I think, a little bit firmer will serve students well. Well, thank you, Dr. Avart. I've enjoyed this conversation with you about science, community colleges, and your career in biology.
Thank you, Dr. Gay. It was a pleasure.
And thank all of you for joining us for this episode of Academic Dialogues. Please join us again for a future episode. And if you have questions or comments, please feel free to contact us at the college.